It was a comeback for the ages until it wasn't. Was that the leafiest thing to happen this season? We'll discuss on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And if anyone used the Game Time app and got $20 off to grab some Leafs tickets tonight to go see Toronto and the Blue Jackets, well, you definitely watched something. Like, I don't even know what to call it. Like, what did we just watch, Dave? Are you impressed by the effort? The Maple Leafs down 5-0 to start the third period, rally all the way back to force overtime, and then ultimately lose in overtime. Like, are you impressed by that effort or kind of disappointed?
Oh, I mean, I would say I was laughing. Like, I was laughing through like the whole third period and overtime. Just because it was like more like a hysterical laugh. Like, of course they come back from 5-0 down. Of course they lose the game in overtime. Like, as you said, it's the leafiest thing to happen all season.
It's incredible, isn't it? And like, we called it to a T. Like yesterday when we were previewing the game, we were like, this is a trap game. This is 100% a trap game, and there's there's a possibility that the Maple Leafs could kind of sleepwalk through the first period, and next thing you know, they're trailing and they're trying to claw back in the game. They'll probably, I believe we said they'll probably win it in the end. Clearly didn't happen. They were this close to winning it. Nylander had a really good opportunity. Matthews shot the puck wide a couple times in OT as well. But yeah, ultimately they lose 6-5 in overtime to, one of the worst teams in the NHL. And again, it's one of those games or one of those things where it's the Maple Leafs and they just consistently, play down to their opponent, and they consistently lose to teams who are under 500. It's so weird though, because if you look at it, like they did somewhat dominate this game. It's just, man, did they ever get sold out by Ilya Samsonov in net?
Yeah. Like, you look at the goals that were scored and like how they were scored and when they were scored. Yeah, the first period hung them out to dry. Turnovers, give grade A chances. Okay. Second period, it's like,
dude, that third goal, that damn fourth goal from behind the net, just kind of chopped at it. Like, that's gotta be like, that's an unlucky one. I'll say that, but like, he wasn't in position. Samsonov was not in position, or that doesn't go in the back of the net, right?
So how does that go in? Like, how? Like, I don't even think Danforth was trying to score.
He wasn't. He was just he's probably trying to center it. Like, just a little backhand chop, send it out in front of the net. Hopefully he's got a trailing man or someone out there who could bang at it. But instead, he chops at it and it goes off of the goalie and into the back of the net.
Like, it was brutal. And even some of the other goals, you're just like, he's hanging back in his net, leaving the short side open. It's like a little more, like, I wouldn't say aggressiveness, but assertiveness.
Yeah, give a little Marty Jones poke check on that Chinnikov move, no? Like, Chinnikov takes a power move, gets past Lagesson, takes it into the net, and he just kind of turtles, gets back into his net, and I don't know, he thought maybe he was going to try and take it across ice, but Chinnikov goes short side and beats him again, glove side or blocker side. That's been a problem with this guy all season long, I might add. But yeah, to your point, like, be a little aggressive. Go out there, maybe toss a poke check instead of getting deep into your crease and allowing guys to flip pucks up over you.
it says something when the guy who scores the goal has to almost think about how he scored the goal. Like you look at Chinnikov's reaction after he scored, and he's like, "Okay, I guess I scored."
Sure. I'll take it. That's a goal in the National Hockey League. I will take it.
Yeah, like the way it's just the body language speaks volumes when he's in net, and it's been a large reason why a lot of Leaf fans are not comfortable with this guy starting games because you don't know if he's there mentally.
Yeah, honestly, it's a fair question at this point, where it's like I would be comfortable to say that it's got to be his worst performance in a Maple Leaf uniform. Like that I think it has to be. That was just brutal, 3-4 brutal goals tonight.
I would say yes, only because in other games he has been pulled before we can see it get to.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Like that was going to be my follow-up question to you. Like, are you surprised that he was given this type of leash? Like 5-0 after 40 minutes, and he trots out in the third period. That's a little surprising.
I mean, it is surprising, but at the same time, I understand why they did it.
Why? Explain it to me.
Part of the
I don't
reason
get it.
is, you know what? Like, you go. I wouldn't say go down with the rest of the ship, but we've seen coaches be like, you know what? Whole team's not playing well. Whole team's got to get if they are going to get themselves out of it, whole team's got to do it. Samsonov's got to learn to rebound here once in a while, right?
Yeah.
In these situations, you can't just pull him at the first sign that he's struggling every single time. That would have been the third time he would have been pulled.
Yeah, those Tampa games, and then this one here. Yeah.
Like you can't just constantly keep. And look, and part of the reason is too is I was just like, as bad as he was in this game, he was the worst player on the ice, but he wasn't the only bad player on the ice. Like,
yeah,
a lot of those the two goals that he allowed early in the second period, the first two goals, like where was the defending on this? Like guys are just like, yeah, just free lane to the net. Yeah, you can go and get the puck. And like Connor Timmins, I don't know what he was doing with like on that one.
I don't know either. Yeah, even the first couple goals too. Like, yeah, okay, they were off giveaways, so it's broken plays and such. Like, Domi gives the puck away behind the net, out front, line a quick shots in the back of the net. Morgan Riley just tries a little rimmer around the boards, and it gets cut off, and all of a sudden, it's on goal, goes off a stick, and it's in the back of the net. Like it's just again, turnovers do kill you. And the Maple Leafs, this is always whenever we're talking about a loss, it's usually self-inflicted wounds. And that's what you saw tonight. Like Columbus, they won the game, but can you honestly sit here and say Columbus was the better team tonight? No. Were they the better team in the first 10 minutes of the game? 50? Sure they were. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But in terms of the full 60 minutes, Toronto was the better team. They just weren't able to score. Merzlikins had a pretty good game until the third period. Yep. And then, which again, we also called probably what happened. And then, they got tough, bad goaltending themselves, which put them in a hole pretty deep. But a lot of that is due to poor defending in front of him, a couple bad bounces, and then some giveaways. You can make excuses if you want. But one excuse that I don't think you can make is the overtime winner if you're Samsonov. That
was a great shot.
Great shot, but it's dude, the team just mounted this big comeback that they had to because you couldn't stop a beach ball. And then all of a sudden in overtime, you can't make that one save for your team. You can't make that extra stop for the boys. That's got to be infuriating if you are, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Willie. If you're a member of the Maple Leafs that is not a goaltender, that's got to be so frustrating to be out there, have that comeback, but ultimately lose because you couldn't make that one save.
Oh, of course. I mean, it takes the air out of your sails, right? I even in that overtime, the Leafs had some good chances. Even though Merzlikins was god awful in the third period, although the Columbus Blue Jackets as a whole team were terrible. He made the big saves in overtime to give his team a chance to win it. Like clear cut breakaways, 2-on-1s that didn't.
Couple that missed the net, obviously, but like there was that one stop on Willie on the break. Like that was a good stop. Matthews had a good chance.
I thought he was going to score there, and then
I thought so too. Didn't happen.
And it didn't happen, and then
go ahead.
Well, it's infuriating when they get those chances, and the one chance on net, it was a good shot, but at the same time, like, come on, the whole game, third period he made some key saves, but his team also had to score 5 goals.
Well, and also like lots of space out there for Johnson to rip the puck, and not that I want to make it a bashing fest, but like why Domi was still out on the ice at that point makes no sense to me. If you like rewind that, he was going to the bench and then out of nowhere decided, oh no, I'm gonna get back into the play, and then the Leafs end up turning the puck over, and then he's got to go back and defend. It's like, dude, you were going to the bench. Should have stayed there, man. And it was him who kind of switched off his man, then Johnson ends up free and alone and gets a shot off. Like, it's just a bad play by Domi, bad read.
There is no team in the NHL worse at line changes than this Toronto Maple Leafs team.
I'm starting to believe it, man. I'm starting to believe it. Like, you could
look at the league high in too many man penalties, and then overtime losses have been because of bad changes. Just continue to add to it. Good job.
Yeah, lots of reasons like that. Like I can't remember who it was who was about to go on, but he did step onto the ice. Like Domi got to the bench. Like go back and watch that play. Domi got to the bench and then decided, oh no, there may be an offensive chance here. Decided to reverse and go the other way. And then the guy who stepped on, again, I can't remember exactly who it was, had to jump right back off. Like that's in other games, they've been caught that way, obviously, where dudes jump on.
Very fortunate it wasn't a penalty.
Well, it didn't matter. They went and got scored on, 10 seconds later, so maybe a penalty would have been better. But
Nylander in a tough spot because Nylander is initially defending Johnson, but then, smart play by the Columbus player to kind of like do like a pick with
a little pick, little rub, and it opened up some space for Johnson for sure. That's just high IQ hockey. And look, that was a great shot. And Johnson actually had a really good game. I'm happy to see this young kid
points in an NHL game.
Well, he's somebody who they had high hopes for, and then he ended up getting sent down to the minors this year. Had a healthy scratch early in the year and then sent down to the minors. So he gets called up, and he's been playing a lot better since he's returned to the team. And obviously a 3-point night tonight. He was a big part of the reason why Columbus ends up with 2 points and why Toronto only gets 1. But I want to bring it back to the original conversation here, Dave, after this whole discussion. Are you satisfied with the fact that Toronto was able to get at least a point out of tonight? Or are you still kind of rattled that Toronto put themselves in the position where they score 5 on home ice and don't end up with 2 points? Like, you can look at it both ways. Which way would you prefer?
You were down 5-0 to the Columbus Blue Jackets after just beat the New York Rangers 7-3. Like, we're talking about them trying to get back into the Atlantic, like in the race for the Atlantic Division. They're still within 4 points of Boston. Good. But if you're going to have any shot of getting past Boston,
3 now.
Is it 3
Boston won. Unless, they got a point tonight. Unless Boston got a point.
No, this is updated with the OT loss.
Okay. And
you want to get yourself into that conversation, you have to have some measure of consistency. They're 5-1-4 in their last 10 games. That's 4 potential points you have left off the board.
That's the difference between 3rd and 4th in the division, or 3rd and 1st in the division right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, they're 2nd because Florida has more games played. But
anyway, leading and not leading.
They could easily be tied for like Actually, they would be leading in the division.
Yeah.
Or tied. It is for that's what makes me frustrated. This team has the potential to go on, a run where they can win so many games in a row, but they're squandering it.
That's why I found the discourse online hilarious. Like, you've got one half of the fan base that's like, "Wow, they stole a point there. Got to be happy with the points." Like, only getting 1 point against Columbus is nothing to be happy about. I mean, I guess if you ask me, after the third period, where it's like, all right, if you're going into a third period down 5-0 and you get a point, would you be happy? Yeah, I guess. But grand scheme of things, losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that like barely can score goals, is not something you want to be doing on home ice at that. So not a great game for the Maple Leafs. There was an injury in tonight's game as well. Someone for Toronto who could be out long term. We'll tell you who that is, update that. And there's some comments that are coming out from the Maple Leafs post game as well that we'll get to on the other side. And we got another game coming up this weekend. Big time game. Penguins in town. You got Sid versus Austin. You got Kyle Dubas returning to Toronto. So we'll preview that game in a little bit as well. But first, I do want to tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our good pals over at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all in pricing, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets, and with the Game Time guarantee, it means that you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Could come in handy. You got the holidays around the corner. Potentially you want to get $20 off some tickets or an event. Game Time can help you out there. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Game Time. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. Nearly chewed my tongue off on that ad read there. Not my finest, Dave. Not my finest one. I've been doing a lot of talking today. I did 3 hours of OD. I had a podcast earlier today as well, and here we are doing this post-game show late on a Thursday after the Leafs completely did what seemed like an impossible feat, came back from 5-0 in the third period, only to, in the Leafiest fashion of all time, lose the game 6-5 and pick up a pity point in the game. As we like to do here after every single loss, we like to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. But first, there are a couple things from this game that I think we should note before we move on to it. Ryan Reaves did leave the game with an injury, and according to Sheldon Keefe, he'll be out a while. Did you see what the injury was? He kind of just...
It was definitely a foot injury.
Yeah, he was hobbling. Obviously, you saw him walking back to the tunnel, needed help. I mean,
hell, like for a second there, the trainers got him off.
Yeah,
nobody's holding him. It was like one of those like cartoon moments where it's like, guys, I'm falling, and he falls.
Help me,
guys. Foot still. I never like to speculate, but that looks like a broken foot to me.
Yeah, and if it is, that's 6-ish weeks. I think a broken foot typically is 6 to 8 weeks. Is a typical timeline there. So, I mean, yeah, Ryan Reaves could be out of the lineup for quite some time. There's a joke to be made there. I will not make it, but by making that comment, I think you catch my drift, if you know what I mean. But in all seriousness, hopefully it's nothing too serious and a speedy-ish recovery for Ryan Reaves. Couple comments that are coming out of the post game that I find intriguing, Dave. Apparently, the decision to keep Samsonov in net, according to Sheldon Keefe, was made by the goaltending coach, Curtis Sanford. What do you make of that?
I think, well, I mean, Sheldon Keefe always goes to a coach and says, should we pull him? He doesn't just decide to pull him. He kind of looks at the coach and says, we pull him? Yeah, he stinks. Get him out of there. But I think Stanford understands. I mean, obviously, he understands better than everyone. A, what mentally Samsonov is going through, and B, I think he's just like, it's better for him to work through it, right?
Maybe.
But that's a. I mean, if Keefe was thinking of pulling him, that must have been one hell of a sales pitch by Sanford to say, no, keep him in there. Like,
well, yeah, he was adamant was the word I believe Keefe used at keeping Samsonov in the game. However, like ultimately he cost them the game. You know, he was in net for all 6 and was in net for the overtime winner as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. The only thing is I can think of is maybe Sanford's like, you know, this one's done. Let's not waste Martin Jones, who just played the last game, and maybe they plan on playing him in Pittsburgh. So they're like, let's not get him into 3 games in a row. Let's see if Sammy can work out of it. But then he was made unavailable to media after the game too. So it's like he was in a bad spot mentally, regardless after the game. So I don't know, keeping him in there and taking the loss and taking, you know, the tongue lashing that he's now getting on our show and many of the Leaf shows that are going to be out there tonight, tomorrow, and on the television and whatnot, where people are going to be talking about this and whether or not that was the right decision. And the fact that he gave up that overtime goal after the team had come back, like maybe Martin Jones doesn't allow that goal. You know what I mean? So by keeping him in there, it keeps the conversation alive here. And that's where it's like, he already has people talking about him. Don't need to add more to his plate. You know what I mean?
no, that's fair. And I'm like, I don't mind. I understand like people want to hear from Samsonov after the game, but I also like, I can already guess what he's gonna say, which is I didn't play well, and I wish I played better. Like that's what you're gonna get out of him in the post game.
Yeah, it's not even like I'm sure the writers down there don't care that they talk to him. Like they probably weren't going to use a quote, and if they did, it's going to be a very vanilla quote, like "Oh, I played like crap," or "I got to be better," and you know, like the cliches that you get from goalies after poor performances. So it is what it is, though. I'd be curious to see who they roll with next up when they take on Pittsburgh. We'll get to that in a minute here. So hold that answer because I will ask that question. Another comment that I do want to have a quick discussion on because I threw it out on Twitter that I wasn't or X, sorry, X. I wasn't a big fan of this comment. So apparently, somebody had asked William Nylander, like, what was the message in the room coming out of the second period, right? Down 5-0. What could you possibly tell yourself that motivated the team to roar all the way back and take this thing to overtime? And apparently the message in the room was, hey, we know we could score 5 goals. Let's go out there. Let's do it. And to their credit, they did go out there and they did do it. I don't know if that's a mentality that I like.
No,
I'll be well, okay, so
yes, you can go on and score 5 goals.
Why do you hate it, Dave? Because like I know my reasoning and I got blasted online. Like go look at my mentions right now. I'm getting so much hate from people like, "Oh, what'd you want him to say? We think we're going to lose and fold up shop." Like, no, that's not what I want him to say either. But for me, it's a mentality thing. It's not necessarily what he said. It's the fact that the mentality is, hey, we can give up 5 goals and that doesn't matter because we feel like we can overcome any type of deficit. And I just don't think that's a good mentality to have. They should not really You know, like to me, that almost seems like they're complacent with giving up goals because they know deep down at some point they're just gonna get locked in and then they're gonna come back and tie the game. Right? We've seen this time and time again where this team gets off to a slow start, they come back, they roar back, and then sometimes they win, sometimes they lose in extra time. Um, Tonight they lost, but for that to be your mentality that's, "Hey, man, if we're losing, we can always come back." You know, maybe that means that they're not that afraid of trailing, and I think they should be. They should never wanna be trailing. I don't know. I for me, it's like a passive, thought process here.
I had a whole rant planned for if they lost this game. I think it still somewhat is justified
Well, they did
because
lose.
the idea that you go up against the Columbus Blue Jackets and think it's okay to be losing to them 5-0 on your home ice.
Well, I
Five-
don't think anyone thinks it's okay, but yeah.
but I mean whether they think it's okay or not, but they think it's okay that they can come
They're
back.
not worried. They're not worried about it.
Like they're like we can go out and score 5 goals. Go and score 5 goals. That's not the issue here.
Yeah.
The
Why do you
issue-
gotta wait until you're down 5 to score 5?
Yeah. Are you guys satisfied with having to constantly come back in overtime, play extra hockey here? Like, oh, sure, the fans are getting a kick out of extra hockey here, but at the end of the year, all those overtime games they're going to be taxing on this team, right? They always talk about teams who go deep in the playoffs, how the next year it's like, you know what, they played a lot of hockey, it might be getting to them. That's like this Leafs team. It's not the first time we have seen this team, as we've constantly said, play down to their competition. And if their mentality is like, we can go and score 5 goals on this team easily, okay, but what if you don't? It's never a given you're going to go out and score 5 goals in one period. Because guess what? It doesn't happen very often. It's like teams don't just go out and score 5 goals in a period. And it's nice they have the mentality to think they can do it, but it's also the wrong mentality to say that that's a reason why. Like, I wouldn't even say it's justified, but the mentality of like they go into a game and they're okay with being down 5-0, coming out and saying we can get 5 goals. Now they're not happy that they have to score 5 goals in a period, but something like, oh, it's confidence. They're confident that they can do it. Well, they shouldn't have to do it in the first place.
Well, yeah, like it's. I mean, when it's hard to. I think
they're trying to avoid the sky is falling sort of narrative constantly, right? Like, oh, it's like so bad that we have to score. We scored 5 goals in a period. Like they're trying to do that double take there, right?
Sure, but I don't know. Like for me, it boils down to like if your mentality, even passively, is being down 5-0 is nothing to us because we can come back and we can score 5 goals. We know we can score 5 goals. I just don't think that's a good mentality to have. Like I think you should be better as the hunted as opposed to the hunter. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I sit on this. But it's tough to argue. Don't get me wrong. Like, sure, if you are down 5 goals, yeah, it's good that you have that mentality. Like, okay, well, you have that confidence. Well, we can still come back. But the point I want to stress is, the fact that this team has the reason why they have that confidence because look, they've been here before. Like they've had to come back and win so many games this year already. This game was also eerily similar to remember Game 4 in the bubble against the Columbus Blue Jackets, where they were down like 3-0 at one point with like 5 minutes to go against this team, and then all of a sudden they get going, they tie the game, and they bring it back and I think they end up winning in overtime. And again, that was just a late game comeback. And it's great when they can finish it off, but it'd be nice for you to just, score 5 goals without having to be motivated by having 5 scored on you first.
Yeah, like they're down. I remember that game. They were down 3-0, and then they started acting like they wanted to play hockey. And then they score the 3 goals to tie it. Matthew scores the overtime winner. But it's like, yes, you're happy in the moment that you did it, but take some lessons for why you were in that position in the first place. And look, that was how many years ago? That was 3 years ago, and this team hasn't shown the maturity to say we don't want to keep putting ourselves in these positions because guess what? You can also go down 3-0 against the Columbus Blue Jackets and lose the game. Oh, right. You did do that because you got eliminated from the bubble because you thought again.
Yeah.
You probably had that same sort of mentality where we were down 3-0, but we can come back and win. But guess what? It doesn't always work that way.
I think maybe the point that we both believe here is it's not, we know we can score 5 goals. The fact that they can score 5 goals and they have confidence isn't the problem. That's not the issue, but it's when you have that thought. Have that thought in the first period. Have that thought right away. We could score 5 goals and make it 5-0 after the first period. And then all of a sudden, we're going to cakewalk to victory. But to sit there and be down 5 and then be like, hey, it's all good. We're going to come back, man. Like we could score 5 goals, no problem on these guys. It's like, well, then why didn't you do that puck drop? Why you got to wait 40 minutes to get going? That's what bothers me about those comments. But I know that there's not a lot of people that share that sentiment apparently, because again, like I said, my mentions are getting roasted right now.
It'll be the people defending this team if they have a similar issue in the playoffs again. Don't come around in the playoffs if they have a similar issue where they go down in a game, have to try to come back, and they fail to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want the comeback mentality. You want that killer instinct where you jump out to that 5-0 lead and then put a team away. You don't want to always be coming back and exuding that much energy. But anyway, I think that's enough of that talk for now. Let's skip the good, the bad, the ugly, because I do want to get into this Leafs Pittsburgh game coming up this weekend. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back, tee up the game with Dubas back in town, taking on the Maple Leafs. Sid's going to be in town, Gino, the whole gang. So we'll talk about that in just one moment. But first, I do want to tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our pals over at FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NHL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NHL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. We do have new shows coming out each weekday, Monday through Friday. You can get the audio versions wherever you get your podcast from, and also video version up on YouTube as well. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe so you can get those episodes delivered directly to you as soon as they are put out. Dave, they're going to have to definitely show up in the first period against this Pittsburgh team. I would not recommend letting them go up 5-0 after 2 and thinking, we can score 5, we can come back. I don't know if that's going to be a good recipe for success against Sidney Crosby and gang Saturday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Look, this Pittsburgh Penguins team is a veteran team.
Mm-hmm.
They know what this game will mean to Kyle Dubas.
Yep, money on the board, buddy. Lots of money will be on the board.
I understand the Pittsburgh Penguins have been brutal this year. Like, they have not been very good. But they're also in a position where, again, they're a veteran team. They know what the situation. They beat Toronto the last time they played them, right? So for the Leafs, this is a team you have to show up against because they take advantage of mistakes, same as a lot of other teams have done against the Leafs. But yeah, like I shiver at what would happen if the Leafs have continued to kind of go in this. We're trailing and have to come back. I think like the New York game, the game against the Rangers, was one of the few games where they went out to a lead and held on to the lead.
Well, they almost gave it away. They were up, 4-1, and then blink, and it was 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third period, they locked it down, scored a couple more. Yeah.
But like, how many games have they had to, again, usher a comeback. I think I could see the only other game was against the Predators. Who
Yeah, literally. I was gonna say that. Like, there's a reason why all of these games, like when they're winning in extra time, whether
yeah.
it's shootout or overtime, because they're either mounting a comeback or they are blowing a lead.
Yeah.
One of those two things are typically happening with this Maple Leafs team.
Yeah, and like, it's a tough stretch here. Let's not forget, you're shorthanded on the blue line. You don't have your number one goalie. Your number two goalie has been having very shaky
Abysmal.
performances. Like, the only good performance he had was against Nashville, who weren't playing very well.
There's a
Now you
flu bug. There's a flu bug that's going around.
got
Like,
guys out again tonight. Now you got Ryan Reaves down, so you like, can Matthew Nice play the next game? What's going on with the lineup there? I know Timothy Liljegren is close,
yeah,
but
yeah.
still not ready to play yet. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, the Leafs have had to deal with a lot these last few weeks. I think, yeah, they're constantly on the commend us for, because I think Elliot Friedman said on 32 Thoughts, like, he talked to some of the players and he's like, well, no one's talking about how we're down 3 regular defensemen and we're still finding a way to win games. That's good, but you're also not missing your top scorers. You're not missing your top forwards, like the guys who are being paid a lot of money. So there's that too. You should be winning those games. You should be winning games. But yeah, this Pittsburgh team has, like, they've been dreadful. Like, I don't know if you've watched a lot of their games.
Yeah.
They have been, like, I watched the game against the Habs. Took 12 rounds in the shootout to beat Montreal.
Not good. Not
No.
good. Not good. And like Sid had 3 points in that game too.
Oh, he was incredible. Like,
Two,
he
two of their goals came on the power play. 2 of the 3.
finally.
Yeah, that's cooking again. But yeah, I mean, look, Pittsburgh, they're not playing as well as maybe they thought they would. But it's still a team that you're never going to take lightly. Like Toronto can't look at that squad and look at them and say, "Oh, this isn't a playoff team," because they're technically outside of a playoff spot. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's Sidney Crosby. It's Gino Malkin. It's Chris Letang.
Entire
It-
hockey night in Canada and Toronto.
Yes, absolutely. They added Eric Carlson this offseason. You've got Nola Chari making his return to Toronto. And then obviously the big one, like Kyle Dubas gonna have money on the board in this game for sure. So you've got to bounce back if you're Toronto. There's no way you can go out there and play like crap for the first 40 minutes of the game, find yourself trailing, and expect to come back and win. And it's not like they all played like crap tonight. Like there were some good performances, and in terms of the expected goals, like Toronto doubled Columbus actually at 5-on-5. Funny enough, but you're gonna have to still have a pretty good effort here against Pittsburgh. I'm curious though, like who you think starts in goal here, Jones or Samsonov?
I think you're gonna go Jones. Just
Mm.
because, like, you gave Samsonov a chance in overtime, as you said, and he didn't win it. It wouldn't surprise me if they went back to Samsonov, just because they. But it's almost like,
How many more opportunities do you think he gets this year before the Leafs kind of move on? Like he has not been able to string together 2-3 quality games in a row here. Just hasn't been able to. It's like he finally has a good game against Nashville, and then he follows it up with a couple stinkers. He's been incapable of getting on a run here, and that inconsistency in net is not something that Toronto wants to stomach right now. I don't think.
no, I don't think so. And frankly, he's playing for a job next year. You would think he would have a little more urgency in a contract year, like last year, to prove, right? There's like something for him to prove, and he hasn't proven it. And like, yeah, has the team played amazing in front of him? No, but they haven't played bad. Like, they've played worse in front of Joseph Woll, and Joseph Woll has found ways to keep them in games and win games.
Yep, that's for sure. Let me look it up on Money Puck because I'm pretty sure, like when you look at goals saved above expected, Like Joseph Wall's got great numbers, especially when you look at like per 60 type games. He's got terrific numbers. I'm gonna look it up right now. Um, where's Joseph Wall? So he's averaging half a goal saved per game. Joseph Wall. So it's pretty solid for Joseph Wall. When you look at the other guy, you look at Ilya Samsonov. He's giving up 3.376 goals per 60, which is the 14th worst in the NHL. Not great. Not great.
No, and it's unacceptable when you consider there were some people who didn't like how the Leafs handled the contract situation. And I heard people, and I'm just like, 1 year doesn't prove anything for a goaltender.
No,
It's
Jack Campbell should tell you that. I just really quickly, like tonight, you look at Columbus, 3.83 expected goals for tonight. They scored 6.
Yeah.
So that's, 2.13 goals allowed above expected for Samsonov tonight. You make those 2 stops. Well, guess what? Instead of losing 6-5, you win 5-4. So that's where we're at, man. That's where we're at when it comes to this team. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I think you give him one more go. I really, really do. I think you give him one more
Yeah.
go. You let him play this game in Pittsburgh.
It's in
And then if
trouble.
that, yeah, like get a bounce back. If it doesn't work and he implodes again, then you run with Jones for a little bit. Give him a couple of games to see if he can get going. But I think Samsonov, like you got to get him back in net there. I don't want him having this game linger in his mind
Yeah.
for a couple of games, so or a couple of days. So I feel like I'd put him back out there. That might not be the popular move. But like if they do look at Samsonov and they're like, hey, we still think he can be like a 1A, 1B goalie for us this year, they got to get his mind right. And not playing him in games isn't necessarily going to help. Like he took weeks off, like 2.5, 3 weeks off in between his starts when Joseph Wall was rolling and rocking and you know, starting every game. And he came back and had one great start and then followed up with a couple stinkers. So it's not even like the time off is helping him either. So yeah, I think
You
you
get
throw
to
him
a
back
point
into
where
the fire.
you can only do so much for him that he has to start doing it for himself.
Yeah, and even too, like I wonder if, and again, I don't know what it's like in that locker room right now or what it's like for Samsonov, but like if you're a player in that locker room and you see hit this guy really hanging his head low, would you go up to Keefe and say like, hey, put this guy back in on Saturday. We want to play for him. We let him down. We gave up a couple early, couple bad turnovers, couple bad bounces. Uh, we want to play for this guy. Like maybe that happens. And that's how we end up with Samsonov in goal. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens there. You brought up Timothy Liljegren. There was an update today. He was skating in the morning skate. I believe they're going to practice tomorrow. I assume he'll be at practice. The word was he's not quite ready conditioning wise, which is why he didn't play tonight. But I don't believe he was completely ruled out for Saturday.
Sheldon Keefe says Liljegren is close to returning, and it's just about getting his conditioning up.
Yeah, so
It's not a matter of his actual injury, because
right.
we know he just hasn't been skating.
Yes.
The injury's probably healed, but it's a matter of the guy hasn't skated in a really long time.
Right. And so what I'm saying is like he wasn't good to go today, but could potentially be good to go Saturday, which would be a boost for this team, for sure. To get this guy back in the lineup.
Needs a full practice or 2.
So tomorrow would be the full practice.
Yeah. So if he looks really good in practice, they could say, "Hey, talk to the doctors. If everything's good to go, he could play." I kind of think it's definitely needed.
So who comes out though? Like
Lajoie. I think Liljegren played. Or did he play tonight? It would be
No,
like
I don't think he played
Benoit.
tonight. It's either gonna be Lagesson or Benoit.
I think
Or
it
Timmins.
should be Benoit because I think Lagesson's actually played very well.
He got beat a couple times tonight.
But if you put him in the bottom, if you put him on the third pairing opposed to the second pairing,
Timmins,
yeah, you can make it a case for Timmins as well.
like if you keep both those guys on the left and you take Timmins out of the lineup, I don't know.
Yeah, or they could go with 11 and 7 if Reaves is out. They could do that
Could go 11 and 7. That actually feels like it might be the play.
because then you
Might
don't
be the
have
play.
to play Liljegren
Yeah.
for a round of minutes. You can kind of work him back in a little slower.
So the conditioning isn't as big a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I could see that being the case potentially tonight. Although if Nyes is back in, I guess that kind of gives you your 12th forward, but
It does.
we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. It's Keith's lineup card, not ours, pal. We do not need to make those decisions. We just get to pick on him for the wrong ones that he makes, and we give him credit when he makes good moves. For sure, we do. All right, bud. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like and a comment if you're watching here on YouTube. That'd be greatly appreciated. And we'll be back with another episode for y'all on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.